Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into the digital front line of 2026. We're going to be unpacking a really comprehensive guide from Send.Win that breaks down this massive, escalating arms race happening right now between data collection professionals and increasingly sophisticated anti-bot systems. So let's see exactly what it takes to survive web scraping this year.
Let's just be real for a second. Are CAPTCHAs currently ruining your scraping operations? If you're a developer, you absolutely know this shared trauma, right? The endless challenges. Your compute cycles are just spinning out of control, and your budget is draining way faster than you can click on a blurry picture of a crosswalk. It's a massive, massive pain point.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our tactical briefing for today. We'll start with the modern CAPTCHA landscape, look at the 4 primary solving methods, compare some services and costs, then pivot to the smarter approach of avoidance, and finally wrap up with legal and advanced tech considerations.
Right, starting off with Section 1, the modern CAPTCHA landscape. And spoiler alert, we are way past the days of simply clicking on distorted traffic lights.
The modern battlefield is just wildly diverse now. Sure, we still have reCAPTCHA v2 with its adversarial machine learning grids, but the newer threats, they're intense. Cloudflare Turnstile validates TLS fingerprints and HTTP2 settings right on their edge network, often without you even realizing it's happening. Then there's FunCAPTCHA by Arcos Labs. They use these crazy 3D interactive spatial puzzles specifically designed to completely defeat optical character recognition. And hCaptcha, they are constantly updating their labeling tasks just to break image recognition solvers.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the shift in methodology. It's perfectly illustrated by reCAPTCHA v3. There's literally no visual puzzle at all anymore. It operates entirely in the background, secretly analyzing your mouse movements, your scroll behavior, browsing history, and cookies, just to assign you a bot-to-human score from 0.0 to 1.0. So the biggest shift in 2026 is moving away from solving visual puzzles and toward the absolute necessity of mimicking legitimate, complex user behavior.
Moving right along to Section 2, 4 primary solving methods. Let's look at the arsenal you actually have to fight back.
So here are your tactical options, and it's really all about trade-offs. First up, human-solving services. They have super high accuracy, hitting up to 99%, but man, they are slow, sometimes taking up to a full minute per solve. Contrast that with AI and ML solvers, like CapSolver. They are blazing fast, usually just 1 to 5 seconds, and way cheaper, though their accuracy can take a slight hit on weird novel images. Then we have browser-based solving. This uses tools to run a real headless browser, but that carries heavy infrastructure costs. And finally, token harvesting. This actually decouples solving from scraping entirely by pre-solving tokens in a completely separate browser farm.
So how does this actually look in practice? Well, the logic and flow of standard API integration, whether you're coding in Python, Node.js, whatever, usually follows this simple 3-step process. Step 1, you submit the CAPTCHA task to your provider's API. Step 2, you loop a delay, basically pulling the API to check if the result is ready. And step 3, once you finally get that valid token, you inject it directly into your scraping request and submit the form.
All right, let's jump to Section 3, comparing services and costs. Because at the end of the day, this arms race comes down to financial realities.
Here we have the true heavyweight contenders for 2026. hCaptCHA remains the reliable industry veteran, right? They charge a flat $2.99 per 1,000 solves using a hybrid human and AI approach. Anti-CAPTCHA is pretty similar, maybe a bit faster. But looking at CapSolver is really eye-opening. By going totally AI first, they've emerged as the clear price-to-performance leader this year, offering solves at just 80 cents per 1,000 and doing it in 2 to 8 seconds. We also have CapMonster Cloud, another fantastic AI contender, which interestingly offers a self-hosted option so you can eliminate per-solve fees entirely.
And, these per-solve prices really add up. To put that into perspective, if your operation scales up to hitting 1 million pages a month, relying on traditional services like hCaptCHA could easily burn nearly $3,000 every single month just to bypass CAPTCHAs. CapSolver drops that down to $800, and self-hosting CapMonster drops it all the way to about $150 in pure server cost. But still, any way you slice it, that is a massive operational expense for any data professional. Which brings us to this brilliant realization. The most cost-effective strategy is never encountering one. I mean, that just hits the nail on the head, right? It completely pivots our tactical mindset from constantly fighting to stealth.
And that leads us perfectly into Section 4, the smarter approach, avoidance, the ultimate solution to the CAPTCHA problem. So to avoid them, you absolutely have to know the tripwires. Websites serve these challenges based on risk signals.
If you have browser fingerprint anomalies, like obvious headless markers, you trip the wire. If you have a poor IP reputation because you're using data center IPs, you trip the wire. Robotic scrolling, TLS fingerprint mismatches between your HTTP library and real browsers, or missing cookies, all of these instantly scream bot. But if you just act like a legitimate user, you bypass these security checks entirely.
So we're really looking at two totally distinct mindsets in 2026. On the left, you have traditional solving. That's treating the symptom. You just eat the costs, and it escalates the more you scale, bogging down your code with those complex API polling delays. But on the right, the new mindset, bypassing. You treat the root cause. You utilize authentic browser fingerprints and leverage browser isolation platforms like send.win to look so flawlessly authentic that the target website doesn't even bother serving you a challenge in the first place. It's like taking a painkiller versus actually curing the headache.
And Send.win specifically equips developers for this exact bypassing strategy. They give you cloud-based sandbox tab environments right in your browser. It manages multiple accounts safely, but most importantly, it generates genuinely authentic web fingerprints. We're talking consistent WebGL hashes, canvas signatures, and real proper TLS stacks. Your scraper's profile essentially becomes virtually indistinguishable from a real user sitting at their desk browsing the web.
And the result of that authenticity is this massive number right here, 80 to 95%. By combining authentic browser profiles through tools like send.win with residential proxies and persistent sessions that keep your cookies active, you can see an 80 to 95% reduction in CAPTCHA encounter rates. That is an absolute game changer for your compute costs.
Okay, finally, moving into Section 5, legal, ethical, and advanced tech. Basically, the current rules of engagement on the 2026 scraping battlefield. It's definitely worth noting the ethical side of things here, as it's a huge part of the conversation right now. Look, just because you can scrape something seamlessly doesn't mean your impact goes unnoticed. The community standard is to respect robots.txt directives, always use the absolute minimum necessary scraping intensity so you don't accidentally overwhelm the target servers, and frankly, look for an official API alternative first. It really just comes down to being a good citizen on the web. And on the legal side, we are just imparting the facts here. Scraping itself sits in a legal gray area that varies wildly depending on your jurisdiction. In the US, you have the CFAA to worry about. In the EU, you have very strict GDPR rules regarding personal data. Bypassing a CAPTCHA can directly violate a website's terms of service, which carries some very real risks, like permanent IP bans or even civil liability. So, as always, be sure to consult your own legal counsel before deploying these kinds of systems at scale.
Let's move to and see how this builds into the truly advanced tech defining 2026. I'm talking about TLS fingerprint matching, specifically J3 and J4 analysis. Major players like Cloudflare and Akamai are heavily using this to analyze the exact cryptographic handshake of your initial request. If your standard HTTP library shakes hands even slightly differently than standard Chrome or Safari, you are flagged before the web page even starts to load. Literally instantly. This is exactly why using tools like curl impersonate or send-in's authentic TLS stacks is absolutely mandatory today.
And at the enterprise level, the defenses are met with full-on behavioral mimicry and token farming. Enterprise-scale scrapers are literally using machine learning models trained on actual human user data to generate hyper-realistic mouse trajectories and scroll velocities, all just to beat invisible challenges like reCAPTCHA v3. Meanwhile, distributed clusters of browsers operating on residential IPs continuously pre-solve tokens, tossing them into a central queue so the main scraping servers can just grab them and go at lightning speed. It's a whole different level. Which leaves us with this final provocative question to wrap up today's explainer. Looking at the escalating costs, the frustrating delays, and the truly incredible advances in browser isolation technology, are you going to keep paying to solve CAPTCHAs, just endlessly treating the symptom over and over again? Or will you reconsider your entire scraping architecture, utilize authentic profiles, and start avoiding them entirely? It's a fascinating shift in the landscape, and I hope this explainer helps you make the smartest choice for your own data operations. Keep learning, keep optimizing, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.